Beautiful day it is, and good to have you join us for the Reporters Roundtable, where we tackle the issues from all angles and from all sides. My name is Rebecca Ewa, and today we're looking at media literacy in the face of fake news, and we are nurturing trust in that line. And in recent times, people, regardless of gender, ability, background, and geographical location, have become publishers in their own right and can find and disseminate information in an easy and accessible way through platforms. Even though the opportunities and advantages offered by social media and by extension communication technologies are enormous, there are also some dangers they present. How then do we nurture trust and ethics in our media space, considering the upsurge in fake news? On the Reporters Roundtable, we take a look at this critical subject, and with me to do this is Odilia Ofori Intiamwa. She is an award-winning broadcast journalist and entrepreneur, and also the Chief Executive Officer of O.N Media. Also with her is Francisca Kakra-Forsen, a former news editor for Metro Television, who has a niche with some international news outlets, including TRT World, CBCnews, AFP, and Voice of America. They are outlet in Africa, right? Yes, and also a strategist with Platinum PR. We'll be joined by Jerry Sam, who is the Executive Director of Pen Plus Bytes, and he will connect with us via Zoom. You can also get interactive on our Facebook platform at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation Facebook page, because we're streaming live now, and you can also send in a text or a WhatsApp on 0244 745152. 0244 745152. The numbers will be displayed on your screen, and you can send a text or a WhatsApp, and let's get interactive. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's been long.
Yes, it has.
And I'm happy to have you here.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
Franca,
Yes,
you are new on the round table. Odilia has been here
Before.
but
Yes.
it's been long.
Yes.
So I would want to start with you. Let's look at media literacy. What exactly is it about?
Well, a basic understanding will be how you can access media and what you can do with it. So evaluating the content, assessing it, and there's some kind of responsibility that will come with it. So it's not just about, in your introduction, you talked about how everybody is now a publisher or a broadcaster in their own right. Media literacy will come in when we have the ability to do this, but it will come with a certain responsibility. You don't just take anything and put it out there, but you have a responsibility to check what you're doing before you put it out there. So simply, that's my understanding of media literacy.
All right, let me go to Odilia.
Yeah, I think it's basically, like Francisca said, you've got to know exactly what you're putting out there, that as you send it out there, it doesn't go to upset and distort the information which is supposed to be right. That the credibility of your brand is associated with the information, so that when the information is out there and it's a mess, remember that you're creating images in the minds of people. And so if the information you're putting out there is not right, it definitely will create a certain brand for you. And so need to understand the space that you are going into. So if you are doing politics, you need to understand the space. If you are doing business, you need to understand the space, and then know the ethics of the space and go accordingly. The ethics, the language of the space.
But why is it so important to know the ethics, the language, credibility, as you said, and yes, why is it so important as far as media literacy is concerned?
May I?
Yeah.
Well, because the information space, as well as the news ecosystem, is changing. We that responsibility used to be largely or solely resting on media, traditional media. So you would get your traditional sources, you would look at you use through your editorial, you do your screening, and you decide what becomes news. But that is changing. The new media has changed all of that, and traditional media has to comply with the evolution, or you'll be out of business. So because of that, it is important because now you are no longer sort of the final or the exclusive gatekeeper of information. We would, in the past, all sit behind TV and watch GTV News at 7 to get information. These days, with a beep on your phone, you know that the UK Prime Minister has resigned. It's that simple. And because of how fast it is going, how easily accessible it is, like she said, the ethics, the responsibility must be a bit more stringent than before. And it must cover a wide spectrum because it's not just traditional media right now. Everybody has to have some media literacy skills so that you can be responsible in the kind of content you're generating and sharing.
I'd quickly like to also say that I think that even though traditional media within, of course, the digital space it's actually not as loud as on traditional media. They have the ability, they actually are the pace setters, so that if I, for example, want to put content on my page, I want to ask myself, how has GTV done it? How has Joy done it? If I want to be able to meet the standards. So yes, even though it's a free-for-all kind of space, people still want to attach credibility to the content that comes. And so even if they see that a private person has put any content in on digital, they want to ask themselves, is this authentic? Let me quickly go and check the traditional media space, which is traditionally known as the authentic space, to verify. So people still will cross-check the information from traditional sources to be double sure that this is actually going on. And so even though fake news may come, when people who are discerning see it, they know this is fake.
So just a rebuttal, if I may, and I agree with what Odelia is saying, but I think there are also irresponsible people
yes,
who would not adhere to what you're saying.
I was coming to that.
And so they wouldn't go and check with the credible sources. They would, not just irresponsible people, but also recklessness, or they don't know. They'll just go with what they see. They will see a funny website.
Probably that's why I said discerning people.
Exactly.
Yeah, but there are too many, like, it's the one
There are
that's
few
not,
of, exactly. There are
it's
few
not
of those.
just full
Otherwise,
of
we won't have the
discerning
problem.
people. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
You
because
would have
I
that.
wanted to find out, for instance, I have no background in journalism. I have no background in media, broadcasting. And how do I know these things that you are speaking about, going to check and double check and double check? Now I have my phone, where when I see something happening on the streets, I just take a video of it, or I just post it without knowing whether it meets the ethical standards and all of those. So for the ordinary man out there, what would be the tips that from this desk we can give them, so that once you take a video or once you're posting something on social media with the advent of new media, you would have to take cognizance of all the ethical rules that binds it? What can we say to them?
So sometimes I notice that when people go on location, there's an accident, they begin to just film and dump it on digital. From traditional media, you all know that we don't do that. Yeah. So how gruesome the pictures look and all of that, we sort of mask it a bit. And so for me, if you want to be a citizen journalist, what you probably should do is, instead of taking your shot so close that we see the details, you want to take it from a certain longer shot so that you don't have all those kinds of things on air. I think that if you also want to be able to do this on a consistent basis, because now people are using YouTube to generate revenue, and so they are on a consistent basis putting stuff also on YouTube. Why don't you just double check with the traditional media spaces and see what are they doing there, what kind of standards, what kind of decorum do they have? Because even though it's a free-for-all, you know that discerning people with the ability to spend will not watch your mess. They will actually still stick with the traditional media that has migrated onto digital. And so I don't know what you would want to be using your content for. If it is even just for fun, you want to be able to develop a certain credible brand. And so whatever things you are putting on digital has to have credibility.
And I think that generally every human being has got some kind of ethicality within themselves. Even in face-to-face conversation, you would expect a certain honesty.
Yeah.
Okay, and so within you, you should know that you can't just put anything out there. If I'm sitting here having a conversation with you, I'll expect that, you know, the content of what we are discussing is true to whatever the subject matter or the topic is. If I relay that information to Odelia, I shouldn't distort it. I would expect whatever she's telling me to be true, and she would expect a certain amount of truth and objectivity from the content. So in that internal ethicality, we owe each other that to be able to put out. So if I'm doing citizen journalism, if I've seen an accident, yes, I'm excited about it. I want to spread the word that something horrendous has happened and people should know about it. But I also have to put myself in the shoes of the people receiving that information. Some of them may be directly affected by the content. Somebody's relative will be part of that, and you wouldn't want your relative to be exposed in that manner. So you should be able to observe that responsibility and that ethicality.
Let me quickly top it up by saying that we as traditional media still have a great responsibility.
Yes.
So for the mass market, which is probably within the account space, I think that is where some of the great ethicality should be looked at. That once they lead the conversation and say that, look, this is how it is done, you will notice that people will follow. And then, of course, from the English side, we should also be busy trying to educate people, because people still listen largely and view largely our content, and it will be a good ground to start the education like we're doing now. Well done.
Exactly. So
Thank
we
you.
would commend you for having this kind of conversation, because people are watching, people are listening, and it's important that they hear about. Somebody will be hearing about this for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's important. Not everybody will get the opportunity to go to the university to study communications or what have you, to even hear of media literacy. So kudos to you and your team.
And to you as well. Without you, there is no program. But let's look largely at the digital space. It presents a number of things to us today. Aside the dangers, some of which we have highlighted here, how is it shaping the media space in its entirety?
It's amazing. For the past 5 months, I was telling Kakra that we have started collecting data on over 1,000 brands and studying how they are operating and how they are executing their activities on digital spaces. I'll give some of the data out to you here now. So, for example, in the banking sector, the language for banks on digital are different from what other people will do. Even how you communicate as team on digital as bankers is regulated. So you cannot find too many bankers misbehaving on digital platforms, because they have stuck with digital policies. The observation from our research is that many companies do not have policies. Apart from that, they also do not have strategies. And that is why you will find a company has messed somebody up, and instead of having the company react in a very nice way and put the person who is aggrieved, they actually go haywire rather. And then you notice that a brand totally went down because of some of this digital policy. Once the company has a digital policy and a strategy, we know who is supposed to comment, who is supposed to disseminate information, and there is some level of sanity. So when you look at the banking sector, they have a lot of sanity within that space. Then we also observe that for university brands, they hardly answer questions. So, for example, simple questions like, when is school reopening? So you notice that the traditional or the universities are still living in the traditional times where that sort of interactivity has not been there. Once you move to digital, remember that it is one of the best platforms that people can have direct contact with your brand. And so you need to take it seriously. That's one of the observations. We noticed that for the hotel brands, they were totally not even interested in digital, which I found very strange because then they have all the great pictures, the great experiences to be able to share. But guess what? They do their advertising through a certain brand. And so they get all their business or most of their business from there. But if you're a brand within the hotel industry and you decide that you want to be an outlier, you want to do more than your colleagues are doing by using digital space, you notice that you will stay above the waters, especially when there are difficulties within your sector. That was one of the things we also found. We also found that companies were actually not engaging their team members in the communication. And so you find that a company has over 1,000 team members, and yet when they post something, it is never shared, it is never liked, and there's no comment. So you notice that companies were also not involving their team members. On the average, in the media space, you have as much as 67 posts in a day. The media has seen that digital is such a huge competition for them that they need to up their game. And that if they didn't up their game and still be seen as the place where people can get the information first, they are actually going to die. So you notice that whilst media has 67 posts on average in a day, you have places like insurance, even the technology companies are posting 8 within a week. Media 67 within a day. And so the media still has a huge dominance when it even comes to the digital space, because they see that if they do not migrate, they are going to die. And if they do not take the leadership on the digital spaces also, they are also going to die. So it is a fantastic opportunity to sanitize the space by the media houses themselves doing the right things. They need to lead the conversation when it comes to being ethical.
Right. Frank, I'll come to you, and I think that's a positive sign for those of us in the media. But does it cut across? You will answer that when I come back. But I have Jerry Sam, who is with the Executive Director of Pen Plus Bytes via Zoom. Mr. Sam. Hello, Mr. Sam. Can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you.
Good to have you. We're looking at media literacy. Yes. And how we can nurture trust in this day and age of fake news. Let's get your...
Sorry, I did not hear your question well.
I'm saying that we are looking at media literacy and how we can nurture trust in this day and age of fake news. From your point of view, how do you see it?
Okay, good morning once again. So, Pen Plus Bytes, as you already know, for the past 4 years, we have been the lead organization in making sure that MIL becomes part and parcel of the Ghanaian society, because we believe that media information literacy is the main avenue that we can use to curb the menace of disinformation. This year's theme is very apt because it's looking at nurturing trust, media information literacy imperative. And the imperative bit is the key word. That it means that the UNESCO and the UN agencies have realized that MIL is the way to go. MIL, its principles of showing people on how to access the right news, how to critically analyze news, how to be ethical in the usage of news, such that you understand that it's not everything that comes to you that needs to be forwarded or needs to be consumed, hook, line, and sinker to be the truth. But in this age of information age, and there's just abundance of information, it's quite difficult for people to tell what is truth and what is the fake. So, for instance, WhatsApp group, family WhatsApp group where your mom is there, your dad is there, aunties. These are people you already, intrinsically trust. When they forward stuff to you, you tend to believe it because they are your elders. But then what we try to do is say that you, even as a youth, that's why we are even targeting the youth, should know better by also comparing news that you get, making sure that you assess other viewpoints, compare what you hear before you forward it. Because fake news, as you put it, but we would tend to call it more disinformation or misinformation, has the tendency to erode trust in government news. So, for instance, during the heady days of COVID-19, we all witnessed how people mistrusted government protocols or information on how to live our life, not to spread COVID-19. People tended to believe other things. Up to today, we have issues of vaccine trust. There's so much vaccine mistrust, especially even among the men and even the women, in terms of fertility issues. And this is all due to rumors and misinformation. In the same way with the news. So now we find that GBC can put out news, and people will rather believe what their friends will send to them rather than what the media is saying. So the trust issues run quite deep and affect the credibility of the media. So for us, we believe that MIL, which is media information literacy, we need to take it down to the grassroots. In the past, we have concentrated in the urban areas. We've left out the rural areas. But, as you know, the proliferation of smartphones, everybody has access to smartphones. They can get on social media, they can get on their WhatsApp, Telegram, and what have you. The same way that we have also neglected the informal sector. So this time around, during this MIL week, we decided to take it further. We want to go down to the grassroots. So one of our program activities actually is to go to the market, to engage the market women. One of our activities also is to engage persons with disability. As we're speaking now, we are on our way to the School for the Deaf, to engage them as well, so that we leave no one behind. So the right approach, among others, but the principal and key one is media and information literacy, which teaches people to be critical in how they consume news and how they share news.
But you have rightly said that with the advent of new media, everybody has become a publisher one way or the other. But I want to find out with that, how do we even sanitize the space? Whose duty is it to even do that?
I mean, the duty rests on all of us citizens. But the critical one is the news media, because when there's a vacuum, when we situate on just reporting political news and sensational stuff, then we're actually feeding into the misinformation and disinformation. Who reported first? Who broke the news first? And all of that without fact checking. All of that leads to disinformation and misinformation, because at some point we the news media also mislead. And it is very critical on us, the news media, to push these credibility issues, to nurture this trust, to make sure that we go back to our old principles of checking, to make sure that whatever we churn out there is the correct news. And the public will follow suit to know that, yes, it is critical and very important that we actually check whatever we push out there. So, I mean, the responsibility is on all of us, and it behoves on all of us to make sure that, all the things that we churn out, because, I mean, what it's leading to is lack of trust and credibility for especially content from the news media, and in a way also to government information.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Jerry Sam. Jerry Sam is with Pen Plus Bytes. He is the executive director, and he's been giving his take on the subject matter of media literacy and nurturing trust in an era of fake news. And he said it, fact checking. Yes.
Can I quickly add something before
yes,
we go to
yes,
Francisca?
yes. Go
When
ahead.
we were collecting the data, that was one thing we really did. We had finished all the work. We had ranked the companies and even the CEOs. And then we said, no, we didn't quite find the CEO who was the most engaging CEO on digital. We quite didn't think that his account was really for him. You know what we did? We actually went to the extent of going through his systems to find his son, to say, does your father have this account? Does it belong to him? And then he said, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have any, he doesn't have any digital footprints at all. And then immediately we dropped that and then re-ranked. That is the extent to which we must want to do the right things. Because if you don't, and that affects your credibility, your brand as an individual or corporate brand is totally gone. And then we also noticed that many media houses also do not have verified accounts. That is a problem, because one media house will have about 4 or 5 accounts, and people don't even know which one to believe. It's critical that media houses verify their accounts so that when people come out there and they are looking for the news, they know that when they go to the verified account of the media house, then that is where the news is really coming from, because people can actually put wrong information on those unverified platforms in your name, and it goes with your brand.
Right. Okay.
So, and I'll flow from Odelia and Jerry, and a big kudos to Jerry and his team for reaching out to market women, etc. What maybe journalists cannot do, civil society is doing. Wait to see some action from government on that, because I remember there was a memorandum of cooperation or collaboration that was signed among the NMC, the NCA, and DJ, etc., to regulate content. This was sometime in 2021. Yeah, so it will be interesting to see what has come out of that. But the point is important to be made, which is what Odelia talks about, Jerry talks about, self-regulation, especially for news media. And for O.N Media, she talks about going behind the data they got to go and check with somebody that, is this account for your father? That's very important. You have the Media Foundation for West Africa. They have a project called Fact Check. Yes, and they collaborate with a lot of media houses. So if a politician says something, if you yourself want to embark on a certain story, and this is the data, the statistics, they can help you, go behind what you're saying and get the facts, the bare facts, so that you can inform the citizens whether or not this that has been put out there or you're about to put out there, is factual or not. So we need to commend those kind of projects and initiatives, and the media has to self-regulate, but that isn't enough. And maybe I'll seem like a stern person for saying that we need regulation, we need the law to be enforced. We have the Electronic Communication Act. I think Section 76 of it talks about false information or false communication. That has to be enforced. In Malaysia, somebody can be sent to prison for 7 years for publishing false news. We've got our laws. It's sitting in the Electronic Communication Law, I believe up to about 5 years, for spreading or disseminating, circulating false information. So the law must work. We won't have the conversation about we need laws to make it, to enforce, we need to enforce our laws, or we need the laws. We have to enforce the laws. We must see the law being enforced. We must see that person A has been sentenced or fined or both for disseminating false information. Media houses, Odelia talked about having, what did you say? Is it about a policy? I think you talked about having social media or digital policy.
Yeah.
If somebody, I remember back at Joy, a common narrative was that if you published false news, you could get dismissed. It was spoken among us as journalists in the newsroom. That was the language and that was the culture. So at the back of your mind, whatever you are writing, you know that the guidelines, the policy says that if you publish false news, you could be dismissed or even better, maybe suspended. But worst case scenarios, you could be dismissed. So you need media houses to also put that narrative, that information, that guideline, put it in their system, in your workplaces for the journalists to understand. Because you cannot assume that every journalist who is walking into a media house to intern or to work has all that knowledge. Not everybody is reading. Some of them will come and develop these skills in the media houses. So there's a lot of work that the media houses have to do. And if you work in a media organization and there's a policy, go and read it. Don't sit down and assume that I mean, if we ask how many have read their company policy, I don't know. Everybody will be found guilty. But you have a certain duty if you are working there. And because working there is not just about taking your salary, you're also a brand of that company. Because you represent that company wherever you go. You don't want to be found wanting, and you don't want to look, you know, embarrassed when you go somewhere and you're supposed to talk about your company. So you should be interested in what the regulation is, what the policy is, what the guidelines are for running your newsroom or your media organization.
Odi?
Yes.
Well,
I mean, the two of us are from the same stock, so
I know, right? I know.
We understand what's the right thing to do.
I know. And you spoke about verified accounts.
Yes.
Yes, and it brought up a question, but I'll hold on to that. Let's look at. I'll come back to. I'll touch on it, but let's look at bloggers. Now we have bloggers, and you know there are fallouts, and some way somehow, let me say quote unquote, their unprofessionalism has an effect on our professionalism. How do we go around that?
I think that at the beginning, I said something that everybody held my throat at about the fact that it's not everybody that is discerning.
Yeah.
But that is your responsibility to get discerning so that you are not deceived. There are certain bloggers whose stories, me, Odilia, I'll never take seriously. Certain websites whose stories I will never take seriously because of my upbringing in relation to places I have worked and what the ethics dictates. And so for me, I will not believe those kinds of content. What I'll say is that journalists within the traditional media space should keep doing what they do best by staying ethical. Because at the end of the day, there will be a sifting and people will see through that this is not a credible space. I will not mention the name of the paper, but today, where is that paper? It used to be very popular. Everybody used to buy it. And it used to contain a lot of sensational content. But today, where is it? I know that, yes, it may have destroyed certain things already and reduced the standard. But as we continue to do the right things and we stay active on digital, our good noise will drown the bad noise. So we need to be all active on digital so that we can put the authentic news out there. Otherwise, we will end up having so much of the noise that in the long run, it looks like it is the right thing. And there aren't too many people who have the time to double check like us to be sure, and they will be consumed with that. So what I will say is that media houses that do not have policies for their team and strategies for their media houses should look at it, because I noticed that a lot of media houses do not have strategy. They don't have strategy on digital. So digital is just like a dumping site. I was telling Francisca that how can media houses where you find the topmost executives is LinkedIn, yet media houses are not there. The 10 top media houses we chose in our data as O.N Media, what we found was that it was only 4 that were on LinkedIn, and the 4 that sat on LinkedIn had never posted, had never said anything. So if there's someone who is actively pumping wrong information on those platforms, people don't have alternatives to look out for. Apart from that, on that platform sits top executives, like I have said, with the needed revenue to be able to buy whatever things you're selling as media house. I can't think far why the media houses are not there. So we have a responsibility to be on the space and be there in our huge numbers so that we can lead the conversations.
And I think the issue of bloggers, I think there's been some improvement, if we can say. We've seen some bloggers sort of changing their profile, changing their strategy, and trying to maybe sit with the mainstream media, reducing the sensationalism. And I think bloggers at some point became a problem for mainstream media, and there was a pushback by mainstream media. So that created that culture where Odelia talked about. Even if somebody saw a post on social media, they would go to mainstream media to go and check, and that will be some sort of fact checking. So you want to go to a GBC to check if GBC is reporting the same thing. Is the language the same? Is the headline the same? So really, I would say that they've been bad in the past, but there's some improvement. So that's also important to say, and there can be more improvement, and it will come back to my point about enforcing the law. Self-regulation is important, but we need to see the law enforced so that it won't be that easy for somebody to just sit online and publish a fake story about somebody's death or somebody going here or there. For me, that is it. That is what
I want to quickly add that.
Do add it so that I'll come on my WhatsApp platform.
I noticed that, and it's something that Francisca said in relation to the bloggers getting better. And it's because there were few within the blogging space who decided that they would do the right things. They started off probably not the best, but have now metamorphosed into corporate bloggers. And when their counterparts see where their senior colleagues blogging is taking them now, and I would commend someone like Ameya Deborah, who's really turned into a corporate blogger now. Recently, I saw he had posted something from some wine conference in South Africa. Yes. So once people begin to see that there are people within their space, one, they are making it. Two, they are doing the right things, they will self-regulate.
But some would argue, and forgive me for doing this, some would argue that they came through the not so clean way. And so why shouldn't we?
Yes.
That would be
to gain the numbers at the
Thank
start.
you.
Right, I have Kojoaba from Adrinka. Kojo says, Rebecca, thank you so much for this discussion. Francisca and Odelia, where have they been?
We are business people now.
Very great discussions you are having, but I want to find out, how do we empower young people? Because they are now more digital than we, the grown-ups. And before you say Jack, they know everything going around. How do we help them so that they can decipher the right from the wrong? Kojo, any of you want to say that? Yeah.
I think that one of the people that we have left out in the responsibility conversation are parents. Looks like parents are now busy, so if the child is disturbing, you throw the phone at them so that you can concentrate, or you get the iPad or laptop for them so that you can do your work. Our children, right, my children, 6 and 3, I make them watch a certain type of cartoon only, because that is where it starts. So they watch only science-based cartoons, ASA, no other cartoons. And we need to pay attention. Some time back, I saw my daughter had done a pose. When they're watching the cartoon, adverts come. And it was actually a pose of some meditation, which is not what I'm looking for. I nipped it in the bud. You understand? So we need to open our eyes. If you see something that you don't like, correct it quickly. But if we say that the phone should be left for them to make all the decisions, that is where they consume just anything and it's not regulated. So parenting is critical, and especially teenagers who have the ability to have phones. Please, let's still be interested to check out what are they consuming. It's critical.
And I think some of these applications come with a setup where you can regulate whatever your child is watching. So YouTube has a for kids brand, and you can regulate whatever it is that the child is watching, so that if they are watching the cartoons, specific cartoons, they won't find their way into some pornographic or obscene material. So it's important that parents pay attention to these things, so that you're not just handing over the devices as a control measure when you are busy and they're distracting you, but you are deliberate about it, so and make sure that it can provide quality information, relevant information that will let the child have fun and learn at the same time.
Right. I have Tete Moiti, Amati. Tete says, it's difficult these days to do that because now parents are working. The mother is working, the dad is also working, and the parenting cycle has been left to mates to be doing that. How do we check our kids? Because by the time you get home, it is late, you are tired, and you want to take a rest. The next morning, you are off. It is difficult. But as you guys have said, we have to stick by it. It is well. It is well. It is well. Let me take this one from... Okay. Mama Hannah. Mama Hannah says, Odelia. And Francis, very insightful bit you have brought to the discussion today, and it is good you are giving us all tips to follow along, because we are not trained, but with what you have shared with us, I think we are good to be able to be doing the right things from now. So I have taken my bait. Thank you so much for the tip that I should be ethical in my posts online. I will heed by it. Mama Hannah. At least the education, we know good. One person has grabbed something. One, so, yes. And that is the whole bit about this particular program. Okay. Thank you for bringing this to us. Media literacy is very key, because to this day and age, fake news is flying in our faces almost every now and then, and people do not check. People's credibilities have been tarnished because of new media, and getting their names back has been very difficult, because the news is already out there. As we say, the internet never forgets. So even if you have the right things to say, your name has already been tarnished. Let us all be responsible. Thank you. You didn't add your name. I'll appreciate it if you add your name and where you're reaching us from. I'll be very grateful. Let me take this one. Ethel from Kokomlemle. Ethel says, media literacy, it is very key. But how do we send these messages down? I heard the man in your video saying they are going to the markets, and with the disabled, okay, the physically challenged, they are targeting them as well. But how can the media also get to the masses? Because you are our voice. Okay, Ethel, a critical question. How are we getting to, or you're saying that now you do not work for anybody. You're your own boss. But you still have a tag.
Well, yes, we are entrepreneurs. Yes. She took the lead years ago. I'm following her footsteps. But we're still journalists. Yes. We're still journalists. Yes. And it's important. So to answer her question, it's content like you're putting out today. Okay, we need to dedicate time to talk about that in the news, in programming, and we need to have an open session where we can have people send their messages or come in with questions, so that, and maybe what Joy used to do, they have these series of talks or talk sessions or conferences or whatever, and invite stakeholders. Thank you, thought leadership. So you invite stakeholders, people to educate, people to get informed. And these days you stream online, it's on radio, it's on TV. So I think that can help.
Yeah. And then what you have just done today shouldn't just be sitting on digital in the full chunk. You can cut it into pieces so that people can consume. because once it's about 1 hour, nobody wants to watch a 1 hour
Yeah.
content. But if it's cut into pieces like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and you share with us, we also share on our digital platforms. The information keeps going.
That's an important strategy. And I noticed, is it this year or last year? I noticed GTV has been very active on social media.
Yeah.
And congratulations, that's great. So with that, you can put that information.
But are we in
out
there? Are we in your? I'll come to that.
Let's have
We
that
should
discussion
be.
when we are not mentioning any companies.
Really?
When we are done, I will tell you
Okay.
in private.
Okay.
But I'll say that, I mean, we're launching the report on the 15th at Labadi Beach Hotel in November, so that people can have this document, which is not just a document to tell their what's happening within their space and competitor analysis, but a marketing tool as well for brands to be able to see who within their space or even outside their space that are looking for digital offerings that they can quickly reach.
You know, prior to this, earlier you had spoken about verified accounts.
Yes.
You also touched on a very critical point that I was interested in. That was people operating with people's names.
Yes.
Who do not own those accounts.
Yes.
Huh. How do we maneuver our way around? Because you may think, well, it is Francisca's account.
Yes.
I am dealing with her. I am following her. I believe in what she stands for.
Yeah.
But in real sense, if you hadn't done this survey
Yes.
and gone behind the scenes,
Yeah.
then of course we know it is perhaps your account.
Yeah.
And I know I'm dealing with you. I'm dealing with your brand.
Wow.
Especially for people who even now sell online.
Yes. Yes. One of the key things, look, if you notice that somebody is using your account, please reach out. Be responsible for your personal brand. Reach out and say, my guy, if you're using my account, please pull it down. Please, it should be straight like that. There were people who used to tag me in virtually when they want to cough, they would tag me. When they want to sleep, they would tag me. I sent the person a private message and I said, look, please stop this. So we need to be able to speak to people and say, stop it. Otherwise, they'll keep going on and on and on and on. It's important. Tell them that they should stop and they must stop.
But with the example you gave, if you hadn't contacted the son of the personality you are talking about,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have known there's even an account, because he's
Yeah.
saying that there is no account.
Yeah, he doesn't. His father doesn't have
So
any
how do you
account
deal
on
with that?
digital. Yeah,
And that person has grown.
I'm telling you, it has over 500,000 followers on just Facebook. 500,000 followers on Facebook. So that is why for us we also brought out executive visibility in the reports that we collected. You as executives connected to brands have to also be visible for yourself. Let's say if this man were to be visible for himself, we probably won't have this usurping of personality. And so they will have to be interested in projecting the brand through their personal brand.
Because if you won't do it, somebody will do it
We'll
for
do
you.
it for you. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And there were times that, and I want to say that there were also times that when I used to be at Joy, that Kwesichum will send you a message. He will call you and say, Delia, you are supposed to be a business brand. Okay, so I can check a comment or a post you have put on LinkedIn. I think the language is a bit too informal. Can you go and formalize it, because now you're a business brand? I'll say that Kwesi actually is the person who helped me to put my stuff on LinkedIn, and it has to be professional. And that is how an individual is interested not just in his personal brand, but the people who work within his space and how they project their personal brands, because it will rub onto his corporate brand. So businesses have to be interested in even the private comments that their team members are putting on their pages, because if you mess up on your personal page, it will affect the GTV brand. And if businesses are seeing it from that perspective and being paranoid about their corporate brands, they will escalate it to even checking what their And I spoke with someone from Calbank, and he said, Odilia, we have told our team we've got to have a lot of decorum. If you mess up and messes our brand, we won't take it lightly. And so then that's what I said, that the banks have the policy and it's working for them. And you notice that their team members don't misbehave on social media and they aren't sharing fake news because they have policies.
And there are consequences.
Yeah.
I would want to add to that. The problem is not just the fictitious accounts, but what the modern era brings as bots or automated accounts. So you've got these bots, nobody knows who's behind them. They are just sharing things, most of which are fake. I guess for me, we'll have to look at it from a broader level. Government has to be all hands on deck on this one, because we would have to find the technologies. I'm sure they already exist, the technologies to fight these kind of things, these fake accounts, these bots that are pushing all of this. Otherwise, it can't be the burden or the job of just the individual or the news organization. It has to come from a nationalistic approach.
And remember that in recent times, there's been a lot of hacking of accounts. They are usually selling remittances, and the opportunities that come with those packages is something that, like Francisca said, we have to find a way of decoding this and nibbing it in the bud, because there are so many gullible people who are actually buying into this and quickly following these fake things, and in the long run they are scammed. For us as media people, and of course I'm still on a lot of media WhatsApp groups, the moment the news comes in there, we know our account has been hacked, and nobody waits for us to even be told that we should leave the group page. You notice that everybody is gone. They have abandoned ship. You understand? Yes. But what about the unsuspecting public that they don't know? And then they are totally, I don't know how that can be looked into, but it has become such a menace within the WhatsApp space where people's accounts have been hacked. The Ghana, the lottery company was NLA should be also very much interested, because on a consistent basis, I'm getting, I work with national lotteries. Can you do this? I don't know what they can do. But this is something that has also come up. NLA has to be interested because it is their brand. Even when I receive any message from maybe an authentic NLA person, I don't look block. Do you understand? So it's not good for the brand. And it has to be something that the NLA should be interested in.
Franca, would you want to touch a bit on policy, the existence of policy, or where there is no policy, and tie in the bit of your personal brand affecting the corporate image? Because from the individual point of view, for instance, I think it's my own account. It has nothing to do with my corporate brand. So why should I be interested? I post what I want to post on my Facebook page. I post what I want to post on my LinkedIn and my Twitter page. How has it got to do? And for instance, if I don't have that education from the corporate point of view, that whatever I'm doing here will have an effect here, how do I manage it?
You know, Article 12 of the Constitution gives everybody fundamental human rights. Yeah. The same article tells you that it can be limited and it's not absolute. So on that principle, you cannot assume that because you have a right to your account, it's your personal account, you're going to do with it as you please. Your conduct over there will be in absolute. You can't do that. And the fact is that once you've decided that you're going to work for an organization, you are in certain ways an extension of that organization. True. When we were working for multimedia, how many times wouldn't they tell us that you are representing a certain brand? Yeah. And so your conduct must align with that brand. When I was at Metro, that's what I told my team. That the fact that you're going somewhere in your person, even if you're not going as a reporter, it doesn't matter. Because you are associated to a certain brand, you have to act in a way. She talked about decorum, a way that aligns with the brand. You can't misbehave. We can't go to cover assignments or events and get intoxicated with alcohol and misbehave. Or wear anything. In that same manner, you cannot go online because you have the real space and you have the digital space. So you must, your conduct must be regulated by yourself, by the policy from the company within which you work. You regulate your conduct in the
absence of a policy.
In the absence of the policy, you, like I said, you have an individual self-ethicality, and you cannot misbehave. You have to. There's this common saying: "My right exists the moment, or comes to an end the moment her rights begin." So you always have to be considerate of the next person. Whatever you're posting, think twice about it. Who is consuming it? How does it affect them?
I'll take it off from there and add that the way companies onboard team members is critical. So if the onboarding, you don't include this, let's say you don't even have a policy, but your onboarding should clearly state some of these things. That once you work for O.N Media, you cannot make comments on your page that does not represent the brand. Since I started the company, I got one young man who used to post things for his private things and then post and does not post anything within the company. I called him and I said, "Are you for us or against us?" And then I said, "Looks like you want to do private things. You are not really projecting and interested in the brand. What do you really want to do?" And then looks like he wanted to be on his own. I made him go. You get it? So the onboarding is so important. Even the way you do the onboarding, if you don't even mention digital policy, but you indicate that you represent the O.N Media brand, anything you say or act in your private capacity affects us. That alone makes people go out there and they are saying, no, we've got to behave properly. It's that simple.
In other words, orientation.
And that will be your passing comment.
You know, Odelia speaks impeccable English, so I was trying to break it down.
Yes, the onboarding, right? Orientation, yes, of course.
and it's very important. It's very important. You see, because when you enter an organization for the very first day, everything that's going to happen there will become memorable. So it's important the kind of culture you distill as an organization. Otherwise, the person is just going to be walking around, not knowing what they're doing, what to say.
And creating a subculture which might overtake the main culture of the business.
I know this discussion will go on and on and on, and even in people's homes, because we cannot say them all here. True. But Odelia, I will come to you for that digital update, whether GTV we are on or we are not on. It is very critical to me. I've been in here with Odelia Forintiamwa, who is the CEO of O.N Media, and she's an award-winning journalist, and she's been in the space for a while. You know
20 years. This year is 20 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Francisca Kakaforsen has also made her name in the media space. She's a freelance journalist and also a public relations consultant, a strategist with Platinum PR, and now you're done with your law degree, right? Or your law what? That will come later, but
I'm suffocated.
Oh yeah, she is a former news editor for Metro Television and has some have had some niche with international media outlets as well, and with Joy. Both of them are coming from the multimedia group. Yes. So my name is Rebecca Ewa, and we were joined on Zoom by Mr. Jerry Sam, who is the executive director of Pen Plus Bytes, and you also sent in your comments, completed the table for us. We are so grateful. God willing, we'll see you again same time next week. If you say a prayer, just say one for us too.